Welcome to Live from the Heartland. Here we are again. It's Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. Today is May 22nd. It's a foggy day in Chicago, at least just now. Get ready. We're going to have one of those Chicago dips. I hear it's going to be 90 degrees tomorrow. Oh, yeah. And that's what keeps us crazy in Chicago, right? My name is Katy Hogan. This is Live from the Heartland. We talk about things that we think you should know about with people who are doing good work. Today we have a couple guests. I'm eager to meet my second guest, who is a director of a film called Fish Out of Water, a film I watched yesterday, and I'm eager to ask her some questions about that. Prior to hearing from Ky, we're going to visit with a longtime neighbor, a longtime friend and neighbor, Mr. Jack Wuest, who is also the executive director of ASN Alternative Schools Network. I almost mangled the title there. Jack, you have been hard at work. Welcome to Live from the Heartland.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Katy.
Thank you for coming out. As you just mentioned, you grew up a block away and walked by this corner every day going to school, God knows, you know, in the Stone Age, right?
Yeah, back in the 50s.
When I was going to school, too. And here you still are. And as most of us, neighbors saying, geez, how long do you have to plan to come to the Heartland in advance in order to get a parking place? Yes. Yes, indeedy do. It is construction site time, and we're just hoping for improvement and Godspeed, and that's about all I can say, because complaining doesn't help anything. But we do have a lot of construction going on out here. Don't give up. Take the L. It's a better way to come. Ride your bike. It's all good. We'll still be open when you finally make your way in the door. So, Jack, the reason why we're here talking together is some fairly important issues that remain generally hidden from the public eye while they're going on, and that is the kind of lobbying that you've been doing for the last period of time that I know of, specifically to keep funds in the budget for youth employment.
Right.
All right, so maybe fill us in on the short history that we were talking about just before we got on air.
Yeah, real quickly. From 1964 to 2000, there used to be a summer jobs program for low-income kids who wouldn't have jobs without it. You used to employ it in its heyday in the 80s and early 90s, about almost 750,000 kids, 750,000 kids across the
whole
country. Yeah, and in Chicago, it reached up to about 35,000. And the money was diminishing and was going down after the Rodney King riots. That was kind of the peak at $1.3 billion in 1992, and then went down to where it ended in 2000. So from 2000 until just last year, when it resumed with stimulus money of $1.2 billion, from that whole period from 2000 to 2009, there were no young people, real low-income kids having jobs. So there's a whole generation of young people who are now 22 to about age 30 who haven't really had much experience and didn't have the experience when they needed it as teens with jobs. Last year, President Obama and the Congress, as part of the stimulus, put in $1.2 billion. And that allowed 330,000 young people to be employed last summer. Now there's a struggle to try
How many last summer?
330,000 young people.
Across the country.
Yeah, 8,000 more young people in Chicago got employed than they wouldn't be without that money.
Right.
The Congress moved to get that money renewed, and in early March, the effort to have $1.5 billion, which would have employed probably almost 450,000, that was defeated. There was a unification of the Republican senators. All 41 voted against it, and on a procedural vote in the Senate, they defeated the $1.5 billion. Since then, there's been an effort to try to revive that. The House has pushed money, particularly the Black Caucus and the Latino Caucus has been very strong on this in the House. And now there's an agreement between the House and the Senate Democrats of $1 billion. But it remains to be seen. This has to be voted on this week, and whether or not that will be able to get enough votes in the Senate past the usual filibuster that the Republicans are always pushing and defeating legislation on. So if there's not a vote by the, if they can get the vote then there will be money. If they can't get through the vote with the Republicans blocking it, there will be no money, and there'll be 8,000 more young people put on the streets in Chicago that had jobs last year.
All right, so just on what you just said, without getting too technical, that $1.8 billion was just pulled out and said, we will not go along with this out of a number of other things that stayed in the bill.
Right. Well, yeah, that and other parts of the bill were defeated. It was an amendment, but I mean, the long and short of it was the Republican efforts to defeat it, they were successful, and defeating it meant that young people wouldn't have the jobs this summer.
And I understand the fellow who's running for governor voted against extending or the jobs thing back in December. Did you say?
Well, Mark Turk, who's a Senate candidate.
Senate, I said governor. Boy,
it voted against a bill with put $600 million for summer jobs right before Christmas. We're interested to see where he'll be on this issue because, again, it's critical. It's an important issue not only for the young people but also for safety in people's neighborhoods. There's too many young people who are on the streets, and you've got to give them an opportunity to get off the streets, to go back to school. Lots of kids are out of school, also to get jobs. If they're on the streets and just doing nothing, there's just too much idle time and too much chance to get in trouble.
Jack, how long have you been executive director of Alternative Schools Network?
Since 1975.
So a little bit longer than I've been doing the Heartland Cafe.
Just a little bit.
Just about a year longer. So you have really dedicated your life to knowing more and more about the impact of what adults do on the pretty much the negative impact of what adults do to throw barricades in the way of poor kids, under resourced kids in neighborhoods that we know don't have the same benefits that, say, even our own neighborhood has in terms of community support. One, how do you keep doing it? And, the whole burnout thing question. But two, what do people need to know that is a couple of simple pieces that if they were in place, our kids would be off to a better start?
The thing that keeps me going, we had a prom last Friday and had 800 young people over to Sheraton, Chicago. So it was great to see the kids dressed to the nines and having a great time. We have a film festival. It's going to be at the Cultural Center this Monday with 39 films the kids have done. So, I mean, we got graduations that are coming up in June, so you get the chance to see our schools work with kids who dropped out.
Is
and
the
they come
prom
back.
from all the different, all the alternative schools?
Yeah, all the different schools. So you get to see kids that we work with are like every other kid. They want to succeed in school. They weren't able to succeed the first time around. They come back to our schools. They're smaller. Mm-hmm. They want the same thing. They want to grow up. They want to have a job. They want to do well in school. It's just a chance to give them an opportunity to do that, and that's what keeps me going. And then, with the kind of programs we run, we can see the effect it has on kids' lives. Again, they want what every other kid wants. The parents of these kids want what every other parents want. They want their kids to get a chance and be successful adults.
Right. So without that,
it's very tough. I mean, imagine if you didn't have a job. I was saying to you before we started,
right.
The irony of the Republicans opposing the summer jobs for youth is that in 1932, Ronald Reagan's father, President Ronald Reagan's father, Jack, had been a traveling salesman, had been laid off his work, and was struggling through that Christmas in 1932. This is all documented in a really interesting book by Gary Wills. Called Innocence at Home, Ronald Reagan's America. Uh-huh. And it was a tough Christmas. He'd lost his job. He'd lost his dignity of being able to put food on the table. And he didn't have a job through that Christmas. He didn't have a job through January, February, March, April, May.
And this is President Ronald Reagan's father.
Jack Reagan. In May of 1933, he got a job. But he got a job through the WPA.
Amen, my brother.
And this was the federally funded jobs program to get people off their back and get their dignity back so they could have work. And Ronald Reagan's brother, Neil, was also unemployed, and he got a job in November of 1933. So it seems fair, and we'd hope the Republicans would understand the same kind of impact that had for the Reagan family that it has for young people to have a job, to get a chance to get off the street and learn what it is to have a job in the summer and get those experiences, and it helps them find work when there is work available in the private sector.